Good evening, universe. Tonight I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in February. I read kind of a lot by my standards, especially there's like a wide variety of things that I read this month, so I'm just going to dive right in. And the first book that I read was, of course, Chain of Thorns. It came out at the end of January, so I started reading it right away. I really enjoyed it. I have a dedicated review just for that, so if you haven't seen that, I'll have that linked down below. It was just a really great end to the Last Hours series, which I have really loved so far. It is probably my favorite Shadowhunters series. So I'm not going to talk too much about that because I do have the review. However, that is a spoiler review. So my unspoilery thoughts are that this was a great ending. A lot of the character arcs that were set up in previous books came around in really satisfying ways. It's just enjoyable to be in this world with these characters and hanging out with them. And this was a really good time. Was a little bit long in certain points. I did feel like it maybe could have been cut down a little bit in certain areas, but for the most part, I really enjoyed this and found it a very satisfying conclusion. Next, I read The Lost Heir by Holly Black. This is the beginning of a new duology, I think, that takes place in the Folk of the Air world. So in the same world as The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. But it follows Oak, who was much younger in the other books, and also a character who we were introduced to in The Queen of Nothing named Ren or Seren. It is mostly from Ren's perspective, and this feels so long ago that I read this now. I did enjoy this. I did not enjoy it as much as Folk of the Air, which was unsurprising to me overall. I felt like the pacing was just a little bit strange, and even though I really loved Oak, I had a harder time really loving Ren. I really felt for her. Like, there were some things that were really sad, really heartbreaking, but I just didn't connect with her that much as a character. And the plot felt a little bit kind of meandering. But I still enjoyed it. I'm still really looking forward to the next book, especially because I think it follows Oak a little bit more closely, and I'm really excited to see that. Still, I liked the Cruel Prince books quite a bit more. Next, I read Witch Hat Atelier Volume 10 by Kamome Shirahama, and I absolutely loved this. I adore this series. It's really hard to talk about what's going on without any spoilers, so I will just say that we are continuing to delve into the darker parts of this world, and I am really excited to see where it goes. Next, I read Lost in the Moment and Found by Seanan McGuire. This, Chain of Gold, and The Lost Heir, The Stolen Heir were all on my most anticipated reads of this year. So I had a lot of them this month. And this one I think was pretty solid. I enjoyed it. It follows Ansi, who runs away from home when a terrible thing is threatened upon her. There's an author's note at the beginning that makes reference to what it is. It is quite a heavy topic. So do read that author's note to make sure that you are prepared for it. But Ansi runs away from home in order to avoid this terrible thing, and she goes to the shop of Lost and Found, something like that. It's this shop that is kind of like a nexus for the doors. This takes place, let me back up a little bit. This is one of the Wayward Children series, which takes place in a universe where you can open certain doors and these doors will take you to a magical new world. But there are a lot of rules that surround the doors. We get introduced to a couple more of the rules in this book. I don't want to give away what it is because it is kind of critical to the unfolding of the plot, and I don't want to spoil anything. But it was enjoyable. I liked learning more things about how the doors work. I would love to get more lore involved in the series, and I look forward to the next installment. I liked Ansi as a character, and I did enjoy this book. So far, The Lost Heir and Lost in the Moment and Found. Is it The Stolen Heir? The Stolen Heir and Lost in the Moment and Found were enjoyable, but I don't think they're going to be in my top reads for this year. So, a little bit of a letdown, just because I was anticipating them so much, but I still enjoyed them both. Next, I started rereading A Series of Unfortunate Events by Lemony Snicket. This is a very popular and well-known book series, so I feel like I don't have to talk too much about it. But just in case you somehow haven't heard of it or don't know what it's about, it basically follows 3 children whose parents die in a house fire that burns down their home. And the 3 children, they get adopted by a man named Count Olaf, who is excessively evil and is obsessed with trying to get their enormous fortune left behind by their parents, which the kids cannot access until Violet is an adult. Violet being the oldest of the children, who is 14, and then her brother is 12. Her brother Klaus is 12, and then there's a baby whose name is Sunny. And so Count Olaf has all these schemes, and each book follows a different scheme and a different guardian of the kids as he tries to get their fortune and they try to stay away from him. I had a lot of high expectations for this book series because I've read it before, and I have long maintained that it is one of, a classic favorite, a childhood favorite, and I'm a little bit bummed so far. I've read the first 4 books: The Bad Beginning, The Reptile Room, The Wide Window, and The Miserable Mill. I'm a little bit bummed because I haven't felt that click that I felt with them when I was a kid. I just haven't been getting that sort of sense of nostalgia that I was really hoping for when I started reading these books again. I'm hoping that it picks up the more that I read. I am still enjoying having this reread. There are some things that are definitely really dated in these books that have not aged well and that I am not a fan of. But there are also a lot of things that I really enjoy about them. Like, the humor is great. The narrative style is always fun. And they're also really quick to get through. Like, the first book, I think, took me like an hour and a half to read. So they're fun, quick reads. They are very dark. So reading them all at once is like, it's kind of a lot of misfortune all at once. So I decided to break it up with some lighter, more fun reads. And the 2 that I picked, I had just received and ordered them in February because I am bad at lowering my TBR. But they're both by the same author, Mira Chua. This author I knew from their book, Road Queen, Eternal Road Trip to Love, I think it's called. This was given to me by a friend a couple years ago. I read it. It's a fluffy sapphic romance about motorcycles and fake dating. So that was really fun, and I was interested to see what other works this author had. And so I picked up Goodbye Princess Peony and Vampire Blood Drive. So the first one I read was Goodbye Princess Peony. This is set in a universe where there are like lots of worlds, and each world is ruled over by a battle princess who has magical powers. And each world is threatened by a divine lady who also has magical powers. And they do battle for the fate and safety of the worlds. The story kicks off when Battle Princess Peony, our main character from the flower world, I think it's called the world of Flora, but I'm not positive. The flower world, she follows her divine lady nemesis, Silk Rose, through a portal and gets transported to the academy for the divine ladies, and the only way for her to get back home is for her to graduate. So she has to become a master of the divine lady skills in order to get back home to her world and continue defending it. This story was just so fun and fluffy. There are a couple of sad moments, but it was just a lot of fun. Reading it was really fast. The art style is great, and I loved Peony and Silk Rose and Peony's knight Dianthus. I don't want to describe too much more of what happens because, like I said, it's really quick and I don't want to get into any spoilers, but I highly recommend it. I got on the website, there was an option for like a damaged copy, which apparently has superficial damage on the cover, and it's cheaper. But I don't see any damage. It looks like it's in really good condition to me. So I don't know what's up with that, but I'm very grateful. And I really enjoyed it. I loved it so much. And that is good it's probably would be considered like YA, and I highly recommend it. And then we have Vampire Blood Drive. This one is for adults, and it does have some adult content. It does have some sex scenes. It is basically about a human girl goes to a vampire blood drive, which is where vampires get paired with a human to drink their blood. And the humans all volunteer for this. So our main character, Bunny, goes to a vampire blood drive and gets paired with a very dashing this lady vampire right here, very dashing. And it's about their relationship and their fun times together. It's more like a series of short stories than a like cohesive novel, but I really enjoyed it. It was also really fun. Like I said, it does have some explicit content, so keep that in mind if you don't like that sort of thing. But overall, it was also really light and fluffy. I would say it's even fluffier than Goodbye Battle Princess Peony. It's it's just supposed to be fun, and it definitely feels like fun. So those were a really great contrast with the eternal misery of a series of unfortunate events. Yeah, and I really enjoyed them. Cannot recommend them enough. These are graphic novels. I don't know if I said that, but the art is great. And they're really cute. They're all sapphic. So I really recommend those if you're looking for a fun sapphic read. That was everything. I kind of sped through some of those, I feel like. But that was everything I read in February. It was definitely a good reading month in terms of quantity. And some of the stuff that I read, like the Mira Chua stuff, I absolutely adored. Other things I liked. And some other things I'm not liking as much as I thought that I would. So really good variety in terms of how much I'm enjoying it. I do feel myself feeling a little bit reading slumpy, so I'm not sure if I will. I'm doing an entire series reread of a series of unfortunate events. That's my plan, and I have a video about it coming up. I don't know if I'm going to take a break from that to read something else, but I'm not sure what else I feel in the mood to read. I actually broke off to read a fantasy book, and I don't want to give away what it is because I'm about to say something that happens in the first chapter. I was like, okay, I'm going to read something that I think is going to be a fun fantasy romp situation. And I read the first chapter. We follow a guy, and the main guy's like partner, wife person immediately dies. And it was like, I was here for a fun time, and it's not what I received. So we'll see. Like I said, I'm a little bit nervous that I'm falling into a slump, so I'm going to try and read something that I feel will uplift me and keep me going, keep me excited about reading. I don't know what that is yet, though. But that is pretty much everything I have to say for this wrap-up. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you had a great reading month in February, and most importantly, I hope you have a great night, universe.